Okay, fabulous. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Riley, and I'm the owner of a company called GatherWealth Investment Management. And today, as you can see from the screen, we're going to be talking about habits. This felt like an appropriate time to have this conversation, given this is the time of the year we tend to establish or adopt New Year's resolutions. Now, I will tell you, resolutions, habits are hard. They're hard for most people, myself included. But in the 20 years I've been dispensing financial advice to individuals and families, I can tell you the power of good habits, and I've seen the cost of bad ones. So I'm going to be sharing some insights, many of which come from a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And in this book, or in the context of this conversation, anyways, atomic doesn't mean dramatic. It means small, small enough to be measured, small enough to be effective. The hope is after this conversation, you'll get the impression that we're not being asked to do more. We're actually trying to make things easier. We're trying to make small, visible progress. And if we can do that, we can stay motivated. What happens is as we employ or as we practice good habits, over time, we are brought closer and closer to our goal. So again, not trying to make things more difficult, not trying to add to your plates, because I'm sure you're as busy, if not more than I am. Let's make things a bit easier. All right, so this is about making things easier. I suppose it's important to explore why money is hard. And money is hard not because we don't care about it. We care very much about money. Money is connected to a lot of things in our lives, not the least of which is health and well-being. It's also connected to the health and well-being of the people we care most about. So money is important. We don't fail to recognize that. The issue with money is it's so big. It's such a big thing, and to have to contend with it makes us feel overwhelmed. And when we as human beings are overwhelmed, we tend to freeze. We tend not to progress. I will share that prior to learning about what makes an effective habit, my New Year's resolutions went something like this. I'm going to get up at 5 in the morning. I'm going to journal for a half an hour. Then I'm going to work out for another hour. And then I'm going to make lunches for the kids for the week. Very ambitious. But when Monday morning came around and that alarm went off, my first instinct is to do some quick math to figure out which of those things I can take off my plate so that I can sleep for another half an hour. That's because of this phenomenon, because I've put too much on my plate, and the thought of it causes me to not want to do any of it. The other thing that happens is if we establish what we intend to do and we fail to do any one part of that thing, we also tend to abandon it. It's because we want it to be perfect. And if it can't be perfect, we're not going to bother. So today, and importantly, we're going to focus on progress, not perfection. I'm often reminded by my wife that perfection is the enemy of good. So we're going to strive for progress over perfection. All right. So when things do feel overwhelming, our instinct, again, as I've said, is to do nothing, which is why starting smaller often works better. Big overhauls. These are things that we don't do well. And when we if they can't survive, if these habits can't survive, we'll abandon them quickly. It's just too much too fast. Small doesn't feel so difficult. It doesn't require a lot of energy. And that's why adopting these small little habits is easier. And they tend to survive real life, which is coming at us from all angles all the time. Small habits compound. If you go to the gym, you'll see that the difference between the body you're imagining and the difference between today's body is not measured by the day. It actually takes many reps over time, compounding to see the impact. And for us, if progress is not visible, again, we tend to abandon the effort. Consistency over intensity. Just like the runner who runs 3 to 5 miles a day and does this consistently, that person is going to outperform the person who runs 12 miles every 2 weeks. Yes, it's intense, but the impact and the overall benefit is lost to the fact that there's too much of a gap in time between the first effort and the second. It's also the same reason why saving $50 today is much less effective than saving $50 once a month over a period of years. That's a way to grow wealth. So there's a reason small changes work so reliably, and it's got to do with how we behave as human beings. So when I put this slide up and I say we are not rational, I'm not suggesting that any one of us is insane. What I am implying is that emotions drive the decisions we make around money. There's a great book called Descartes' Error, written by a neuroscientist. His name is Antonio Damasio. And there's this great quote that comes from it. We are not thinking creatures that feel, we are feeling creatures that think. Scientists have studied the human brain when we make decisions, and what they discovered was emotions precede decisions. We overlay that with logic after we've already made the decision. This is why we might be driven to Amazon, the site, to go look at our wish list if we're feeling bored or angry or sad. We make the decision to purchase that thing from our wish list because, as it turns out, there's a discount available to us. And then we employ the logic afterwards. Goes something like this. Well, I've done really good with my budget this week. I'm rewarding myself. Or it was on sale, so I'm getting it at a discount. Again, we feel the emotion, we make the decision, then we describe why we did it with logic. It's also important to realize that intelligence, awareness, doesn't save us from our tendencies. We all know it's important to eat healthy, but we don't always do that. This last point about biases, we've all got them. And in this context, they're not bad. They're just shortcuts that the brain takes because the brain is attempting to do things as efficiently as possible. It's always looking for shortcuts. It's human nature. It's not a personal failure. There's one bias in particular called loss aversion that's been well studied. And basically, it takes us back. The study of loss aversion takes us back 200,000 years to a time when our distant ancestors were more concerned about survival than anything else. And what scientists realize is their brains look very much like our brains. So if we're working with equipment that is wired for survival above all things, how can we expect to be good at investing when we have to expose ourselves to danger, to the risk of not surviving? So the big reason we actually get stuck is because now feels more important than later. Today is louder than tomorrow. We actually overvalue today. The future benefits that we would accrue, they feel distant and abstract. We're looking to satisfy what we want today, and we'll focus on the future when it becomes more clear. Mortgage brokers and car dealerships understand this. When you go to purchase a car, they are not talking to you when you meet with the finance department about the implications of borrowing over the course of 6 years at a particular rate. They just want to know, how much can you afford each month? We'll let the terms and the financial pieces sort themselves out, but they're looking to get present you to accept that this is a good deal. Future you, we're not really listening to that person. Same with a mortgage. When I first attempted to buy a home, I thought the bank was on my side. I thought that loan officer was interested in getting me something, and that person was the only one who understood how I could get it. And if that person said it was okay, then it must be a good financial decision. Now I meet with people who want to buy a home, and the first thing I share with them is, well, how much do you want to spend over the course of the period of time that you'll be paying for that home? And I use a simple example. $500,000 financed at 5% over 30 years will require a $2,700 a month payment. Now, present me might think that's not such a bad thing, given how much income I'm making. Why don't we move forward with that? Because it seems tolerable. But future me is the one who's going to have to bear the cost of the interest payments over time. And those interest payments add up to $466,000 over a 30-year period. So that home that I want to finance and purchase at $500,000 will cost me $1 million in time. Again, I'm focused on the present, but I've got to be concerned about future me. So that's why habits matter. It's why it's necessary to kind of consider the things that we want to do, which will yield good outcomes in time. And we've got to ensure that we understand how to impose these habits in a way that makes sense. Again, habits are simply shortcuts, right? We've got this amazing brain, but this brain is intent on making decisions easier. It's looking to conserve energy because it is a very energy intensive operation to function for functioning. So what we're trying to do is introduce systems into the mix to make the decisions that we all have to make easier. We understand that systems are durable, motivation fades. So in his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear uses this example. Imagine walking into your living room where for most of us there sits a TV and couches. It's the end of the day. All you want to do is grab that remote, turn on the TV. That's how habits form. There is a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is I arrive home from work, I enter this space. The routine is pick up the clicker. The reward, I get to sit for an hour or two and think of nothing but what's on the screen. That is arguably not the healthiest habit. And what the author realizes is if he wants to change that habit, and in his case, he wanted to learn how to play the guitar, then he's probably got to change his environment such that he is adding friction to prevent himself from doing the bad habit and smoothing the path towards the good habit. So what he did was he took his remote, he removed the batteries, he put the remote in one room, batteries in another, and then he unplugged the TV. Where the remote was sitting, he put his guitar. So now he walks into that space. It's the same cue, but now there's less friction between him and the car and a lot more friction between him and the remote and the TV. That's how good habits are formed. That's how less than good habits are perhaps abandoned. Because what we're really trying to do with our habits is take care of the future us. We use habits to bridge the distance between where we sit today and where we want to go. And repeating those habits is just a way to care for the person that someday will be counting on us to do the smart thing today. So if habits are taking care of our future selves, then the question becomes what habits can survive real life? And the habits that survive real life, again, to come back to this point, are the small ones. Adopting small habits, things that don't require a lot of time and energy. That's the secret to systems that survive real life. Perhaps, and these are not prescriptive, it's not a one size fits all, perhaps a 5-minute check-in where you go into your bank account, you simply look at the balance on a weekly basis, maybe a Friday. Do nothing more than that. Don't budget, don't examine it too closely, but get into the habit of just logging in and looking at the balance. Maybe something, it strikes you as unusual. Maybe you didn't anticipate seeing that amount of money. Whatever that feeling is, let it settle and come back a week later, do it again. Just that small exercise has been found to reduce pressure, to reduce anxiety around money for people. There's also a way to automate savings. You can use the tools that your bank provides to round up the cost of items and send that difference into your savings account. A very small amount, but we'll start to observe that savings account growing. Again, it's a small thing. Maybe it doesn't even feel painful. Maybe it largely goes unnoticed. But because it's easy, because it's regularly practiced, good things are happening. You can also go on these, I know that the bank I use has these tools for tracking spend. It will automatically categorize according to its own logic, the things I'm spending money on. In our household, it's groceries and dining out. And what I can do is go into my online portal and see that on a monthly basis, the highest expenses are regularly going out to eat and groceries. Now, just engaging in that gives me data that I can work with, data that I can use to establish a habit. Maybe I'm intent on reducing the spend by $50 because I've got a different job for those dollars. All right, maybe that's being added to savings on a monthly basis. Whatever it is, we're trying to make these habits small and durable. Ideally, we don't have to rely on motivation for any of this, right? We'd prefer to automate everything. Our 401ks work this way, right? You can actually indicate on many of the, for many 401k service providers, you can indicate that you want to increase your contribution to your 401k by 1% per year. That's just a box that you check. Annually, that's going to happen, and it likely goes unnoticed. The other thing that people don't realize about the regular contributions that people make to their 401ks, again, these are dollars that come out of our paycheck before we receive the money in our bank account. The performance of the 401k that most of our clients have is often in excess of what money managers, people who do this professionally, are able to achieve. Why? Because they're making this, they're not making a decision at all. The money is just flowing into the markets. The markets could be up, the markets could be down. What they're actually doing is dollar cost averaging into the markets over time, which guarantees in a world where we can't use that word, guarantees that you won't be buying at the highest price if you do this on a regular basis, irrespective of where the market sits relative to its average price. With fewer decisions, we get better outcomes. Automation protects that behavior, and that's why it's a very important tool in the habit toolbox. Frameworks do the same thing. Simple frameworks, taking and creating 3 accounts, each of which has a different job for the money that you receive. Establish an account for safety, establish an account for growth, establish an account for aspirations. Once those buckets get funded, you're going to find it more difficult to take from any one of them for that thing you want to spend on in the moment, the thing that present you is after. Now I've got to get over this psychic barrier that I've built and say, all right, well, if I'm going to take money from one of these buckets, I'm either going to feel less safe, reduce the growth I'm after, or put that lifelong dream of traveling the world on pause. Just that small barrier could make all the difference. We come back to this point, progress over perfection. Perfection is brittle. If we find that we can't do everything exactly right, we tend to think in an all or nothing fashion and we abandon the effort. Progress survives real life. Staying engaged is far more important than getting it right every time. Because missing one day of a habit does not destroy that habit. Quitting the habit does. So focus on progress over perfection. And there's a funny thing that happens when we regularly do the things that we've set out to do. It starts to feel like that's who we're becoming. Every habit repeated is a vote for the person we want to be. We start to embody the identity of the person we want to become. This is just a thing that I do. I do it. Imagine the runner. I'm a runner, so of course I'm going to run. I'm fit, so of course I've got to go to the gym on a regular basis. We start to become the people we want to be because our progress is evident and it motivates us to continue. We become more confident. One of the fastest ways to make sure that identity takes hold is to use language in a more powerful way. Consider these 2 statements. I'm trying to save versus I'm a saver. I'm bad with money versus I make thoughtful decisions. Language actually reinforces our identity. I am versus I'm trying. One is powerful. One implies that we're open to considering that we might not be that thing. So instead of thinking about everything you could change, let's focus on small habits. So if you'll indulge me, and I won't know if you do this or you don't do this, I'd ask you to participate in this exercise. Imagine yourself at 70 or at 80 or at 90. Imagine what you want to feel like at that point. Do you want to feel more healthy? Do you want to feel more financially stable? How do you want to feel? Try to imagine yourself on that future date, what you'll look like, how you'll feel. And then imagine that person, that future you reaching out to you and saying, I'm counting on you to do something. What is that thing? And then the pivot. Once you feel connected to that future self, once you imagine the identity, the person you want to embody, it becomes clearer what you should be doing today. You're connected now to your future self. Who do you need to be today? And finally, choose one habit. Just choose one habit, make it small, start today. If you're imagining a habit right now and you think that one might be too small, well, that might be exactly the one that works best. And so I'd encourage you to adopt that habit. If it feels too easy, that's perfect. That's the one. Success is returning to the habit, not the perfect habit. Final thoughts. If you think about habits as acts of care, and if you think that you want these actions to deliver the reality you imagine for yourself, then start small and watch how compounding brings that goal into focus. Remember, consistency over intensity. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do one thing, start small, make it consistent, and watch it compound. I want to thank you, as always, for your time and attention. And if you have any questions, this is our information. Please feel free to reach out. And good luck and talk soon.